Welcome back, Elvis fans. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, not sure where that's at, but hopefully we can get through this with Sandy Miller. Um, Sandy, I know we had some audio troubles, but it looks like, can you hear me now?
I can hear you good now.
All right. Well, Sandy, I know people are just getting back on, and I know we had some issues with some of the questions. So uh, I, we briefly talked earlier that you're from the Minneapolis area, and you had a pen pal that lived in the California area. And if I'm correct here, when you went to visit, she took you up to the house where Elvis was at. Am I correct on that?
That's correct. I didn't even know he lived in California. I was only aware that he had Graceland at the time.
Right. So uh, just to recap, so she brought you up, and now did you go up and the first time you went up to the house, did you connect seeing Elvis, or did you have to come back a couple different times before you saw him for the first time?
No, that first time it was a 15-second flyby. I mean, he was just returning from the studio and he stopped the Rolls Royce, and there was three or four fans waiting for him there, and he basically stopped, rolled down the window and said a few words, and everybody there said a few words, and then he went in the house, and that was it for the first time. And I always said, "Ah, I would be happy if I just got to see him, just one time. Just let me see him and I'll be happy." And I
Right.
saw him, and the minute he went in the house, I go, "Okay, I got to see him again." He was kind of addicting.
Well, I imagine he would be. So, um, were you going back to one of the questions I had earlier was uh, obviously you weren't living in California, so did you make um, more vacation visits to go to California and then try to see Elvis, or how did that eventually, um, you know, get where you got to see him more often in the
Um,
California area?
well, I fell in love with California, so I went back home to Minnesota and finished out my last year of high school, and then I moved to California. And that was the start of it all, because then we would go up there every single day. And he was making movies at the time. So he had a set schedule. He would leave in the morning between 8 and 9. He'd come home between 5 and 6 usually. So we would head up there every day after work, and 9 times out of 10, we'd get to see him every single day.
That's that would be very addicting to know that if you go, you might see him, right?
Yep, it was pretty much a done deal. I mean, at the very least, you would see him drive through, but more often, 9 times out of 10, he would stop, and many times he'd drive through, park the car, and then walk back out to the gate to visit with everybody. He was very good about that. He enjoyed spending time with the fans, and he got to
Oh,
know them. He got to know them by name. Yeah, he was quite different from most celebrities.
well, we have a question from fans asking you. It's Emma Rose. Hi, Emma. Uh, she's asking Sandy, did you ever count the actual times you saw Elvis?
Oh my
I
God, no.
guess I
No,
guess that would be quite a few, right?
I couldn't even begin to count. It was literally daily, every month. I mean, rarely did we not see him.
Wow. So we were talking earlier, and I know our connection was a little bit bad, and we talked about some of the houses. I show those pictures again of um, Elvis at the house here. Could you just explain what the fans this location and the first location that you met Elvis at?
Okay, this is the Perugia house. This is the house that Elvis hosted the Beatles at, where they came
Oh,
to.
right.
Yeah, so that's this particular house. This is the first house I saw. I met him at, and that was in the mid '60s.
Yeah. So that I don't have. This is a picture of Elvis with Vernon,
Uh huh.
but there is only a very few pictures of Elvis with the Beatles
Yeah, I
of
think
that
there's like
time.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 somebody snapped. I don't know who took them.
All right. So for the fans that just rejoined us, if you have a question for Sandi as we're conversating here, I will try to get that answered. We had another video going. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of technical difficulty, and but we're back here and we got her on audio. So Sandi, we were at this picture, I believe, when you when we had some difficulty on the last video, and you were explaining that this is the little sister of your roommate that was in California.
Yes, this is a picture of Janelle, and she was my roommate's little sister. So Charlie's picking her up.
So everybody's going up. So how many people were at the gate on these, on these occurrences that you were up there? I mean, was it?
There was a core group that was up there every night, which consisted of maybe 4 to 6 people. And then on the weekends, there would be more. I think the most I ever saw up there was maybe 20, but it was a small group. It was just a small group. Not a lot of people knew that he had homes in California, or that you could even go up there and meet him. So it wasn't that well known. So I would say anywhere between 4 and 8 in a given night. And of course, then the tour buses started coming up, which that's a whole other different story.
Yeah. So obviously, you became friends with some of the entourage as well as they
Yeah.
came through.
Yes,
And go ahead.
we got to know all them. Some were more friendly than others.
All right. Well, Charlie, I understand you and Charlie kind of dated for a little bit in that time period as well.
We did. We became good friends. And yeah, I really liked Charlie. He was just, and the fans liked him. He was as good as Elvis was about just coming out and hanging out and getting to know people and just talking and having fun. So yeah, we became friends, and we
Mm-hmm.
dated for a while, and then we remained friends. We remained friends until he died, actually.
Oh, yeah. I met Charlie a few times. He was out at the Pigeon
Pigeon
Forge
Forge. Yep.
area, and he was, working at one of the,
Memories
performance
Theater.
places, Memories
Yeah.
Theater,
hmm
and you know, uh, uh, he was glad to meet with the fans after as well.
Yep.
So there was this is a great shot. Is this your photo, Sandi,
Yep.
that you took, or
Yes, that was taken at the Hillcrest House. He was out for
Hillcrest
about
House?
he was out for about an hour that day, and some Beverly Hills policeman, um, who had been wanting to meet him so bad. This poor cop, he just kept driving up and down the street. And we told him, just keep driving up and down because he'll be home soon. And chances are he'll come out and talk. And I actually have pictures of him taken with the cop on this day. I
I
don't know. I don't
is
know if I sent you those or not, but yeah, the
Yeah.
cop was very happy.
Was that there was a car there long? I think I might have those photos. Uh, Let me just switch here. Is it this one? No, it
No,
wouldn't be here.
no,
Right there.
no,
This gentleman here? No,
no.
different one.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was at the Rock. That was at the Rocca House. And the green suit, those were taken
Uh-huh.
at the Rock. Yeah, those were at the Rocca House.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's let's just go back. So obviously knowing that he had different homes during the 60s, and you guys would just go to whatever location he was at.
Oh,
Um,
he would tell us when he was getting ready to move. Like when he left the Rocca House, he goes, "You want the address to the new house?" We're like, "Well, yeah."
oh wow.
He knew we'd find him anyway. So
Hmm. But Elvis just cordial with everybody. And you don't find that today
absolutely.
with many of the celebrities. Um,
He was absolutely he was interested in, like I said, he remembered everybody's, he knew everybody's name. He would ask, "Where are you from? What do you do?" And he would remember. He just remembered all this. But The regular fans that came up to the gate, he knew them and he felt comfortable around them. He didn't
Hmm.
have to worry about anybody being weird or freaking out. And you were comfortable around him. He had a way to make you forgot he was the Elvis Presley.
Right.
You forgot. Hard as that may seem to believe.
Yeah. Was there any time, Sandy, that not to say brush off, but he would be a little quicker to go through, or was he accommodating most of the time?
No, he was accommodating most of the time. The only time he was like, if he could not stop, it was either because he was running late and dinner was on the table, or he had, he was having meetings with somebody. But it was so rare, I could probably count it on one hand. Um, yeah, he never seemed to really be in a hurry. He was just, he enjoyed himself. I mean, you got the impression that he quite genuinely enjoyed spending time with the fans. And sometimes one of the guys might try to hurry him up a little bit, and you didn't hurry him up. He did
Right.
what he wanted to do.
For the folks that just may have joined us and reconnected with us, here talking with Elvis's friend, Sandy Miller from Las Vegas, joining us this afternoon. So if you were on our other stream earlier and had some difficulties, we connected back here. So thanks for rejoining. So Sandy, obviously, then you were dating Charlie for a little bit, and so the connection from a fan at the gate to more of a friend, personal friend. How did that transition happen? And was it Charlie inviting you one time to one of the a house to visit, or give the fans a
Um,
little insight on that?
it was kind of a gradual thing. Well, for one thing, Charlie invited me in a couple of times, and I didn't go. Um,
Oh,
he, well, he was considerably older. I didn't really know who he was, and it's a house full of men, and
right.
I just wasn't comfortable with the whole situation, so I just declined for the first couple of times. And then Elvis drove up one day, and he goes, "Why aren't you coming in?" And I went, "Yeah, I tried to explain it to him, but he goes, "You'll be fine. You're safe." He goes, "It'll be good. You'll enjoy yourself." So then I did go in, and that kind of started it. And then he was right. It was a comfortable situation. They're very laid back inside. Um, it was just nice. It was like going over to your friend's house. You sit around, you watch TV, you talk. It's not much different than you would with anyone, other than
So
if
when
Elvis other than Elvis
right.
was in the room.
So this time, that the very first time that you were at one of the home, so it wasn't a party. It was just a
No,
gathering of friends, or
it was just a couple of the guys lived there in the house, and literally the first time we sat on the couch and watched TV. That was it.
okay. So how? Actually, we got a question from Sandy Bars asking, how did you start your relationship with Charlie? So you talked about you're kind of a friend. How did it get to being more of a closer friend, I guess?
Um, Gosh, good question. I know he asked me to go when we were standing at the gate the first time. He asked me if I wanted to ride down into the village with him, Westwood Village, because he was picking up cigarettes or what have you. And, so I went with him to do that. And, it was just over time, just talking, just visiting with him. And, you know, you just, it just happens. I don't know.
Right.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. So seem like a very genuine person, right? That's how relationships happen. You just
Yeah, you just get to
you
know the
you gain a
person little
trust with
by
that person, right?
right. You just get to know them for themselves. And if you feel comfortable, then yeah. And I
Yeah.
always felt comfortable. I always felt comfortable around Charlie. He was kind of a nut.
He was, well, obviously we know about his kind of a character on stage with Elvis and that kind of stuff too. But I know the few times that I met him, and very cordial, very happy-go-lucky gentleman, and
Always, yeah. Very
I
up, very
think that's what
upbeat.
Elvis saw in him.
Yep, very upbeat. He could snap Elvis out of a bad mood pretty darn quick. So he was
You
good
know.
to have around.
So I asked you about these photos. We know that Elvis had gotten an award um,
Hmm.
from Memphis, and when you sent me these pictures, the first thing I thought is, oh my gosh, you were in Memphis and saw Elvis get this award, but
No,
that's not the case. Fill us in on these photos here.
these were taken after he had gone. These were taken in California. He had gone to the Long Beach karate tournament, and he was just wearing them. He wore his little medals because he liked to show them off.
Yeah.
And so this was after the karate tournament, and some fans asked him what it was. So basically, in this picture, he's just showing them the medal and explaining what it was.
He was very proud of that, though.
Very.
If you look at the actual award, the trophy that he received, I mean, it looks pretty worn. If you go see it at Graceland, it's
Really?
there, and it's almost like, did he carry this thing wherever he went? Because usually like the trophy would seem like it wasn't handled very much, but that
Well,
one
but
is there's
we're talking Elvis here. He liked his awards and his guns and his badges and everything.
right. So there's Hamburger James
Yes,
hanging with Elvis there.
there's James Colley. Yep.
Yeah. There's another great shot of Elvis.
Yeah.
Um,
Same night.
Same night,
Hmm.
obviously, again, very proud of that award. Priscilla, did you ever come across Priscilla? Is this your
Oh,
photo as well, or?
yes. This was taken in Palm Springs at the Honeymoon Hideaway. It's called on Ladera
Oh, yes.
Circle. Yeah, this was a couple days after they got married. Actually, this is in the courtyard.
Okay. So, bunch of fans there, and Elvis stopped.
No, no, no fans. No fans.
Oh, okay. This was later on, um, when you became more of friends and
Yes. Yeah.
okay,
At this point, I pretty much at some point, don't ask me what year because I don't remember. At some point, I quit going up to the house and standing at the gate, um,
sure,
and basically just waited for an invite, which usually came for the weekends. Elvis used to go down to Palm Springs for the weekends, and so we would usually, I'd get invited. I'd get a call Thursday or so saying we're going to Palm Springs this weekend. Would you like to come down? So I would go down Friday night after work and stay for the weekend and come back Sunday night and go to work. Sometimes I didn't come back until Monday. I'd get up like at 4 in the morning and drive back to Orange County
wow.
and go straight to work, which that was brutal. I could never do that now.
Conversations with Priscilla very much, or
Not a whole lot.
not really?
No, no.
Hmm. But it seemed like she was just used to having other people around. Uh,
Other people meaning fans or other people meaning the guys.
Guys and friends like yourself.
Um, yeah,
It's commonplace,
I don't think she was crazy about it actually.
right? Right. Yeah. Well, she wanted your husband for herself, but
Well, listen, I wouldn't be crazy about it either, so I can't fault her for that.
right. A question, Sandy, coming from Lori out in the Midwest. She's asking if you've ever considered publishing your photos that we're showing here in a book.
A lot of my photos are Bud Glass did 2 volumes of photo books, and I contributed, I don't know, 100 or so photos for the photo book. That was working with Bud Glass. The name of the book is Behind the Image. But on my own, no, I haven't done anything.
Yeah, Bud's published a couple books for the fans that know Bob Klein. He
Hmm.
had a
Yes,
book that
Bob.
he did that he did, and I'm not sure how available they are anymore, but that's where you can find some of Sandy's photos. Uh, Vernon, did you ever come across Vernon?
Oh yeah, I love Vernon. He was a hoot.
Uh, is this your photo here at all or not?
Yeah, that's on the set of Live a Little, Love a Little in LA.
Okay. So you sent me these photos, and I was asking, like, okay, this is on the set of the movie.
Hmm.
So Elvis invited you to some of the movie sets later on.
No, I was not invited. We
Okay.
just, he would say where he was going to be, and then if we wanted to go, we could go. And they were open sets, so
Okay.
anybody could go actually.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's a few photos here
Yeah,
on the set of.
that's his trailer on the set.
Okay.
I think that's Sunny in the purple. Oh, Nancy Sinatra.
Is this your photo at all, or?
Yeah, that's Nancy Sinatra. That's also on a movie set.
Okay. Um, did he ever um, relay his distaste for acting in the movies later? Obviously, by this time, it was maybe not known to the public at that time, but it's well known now that kind of was a little more on the frustrated side about the movies.
He would make fun of the movies, I guess would be the best way to describe it. That was his way of complaining, I think. Um, like sometimes we'd ask him at the end of the day, so what did you film today? And he'd go, well, today I sang to chickens, or today I got to ride down the highway with a full orchestra in the background out of nowhere. He'd just make fun. He'd make fun of,
Okay.
and I think that was his way of complaining.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I love Elvis movies. From Harem Scarum to you name it. I just enjoy them, and I think what I think people don't understand is, Elvis obviously wasn't visible to the public. Obviously, wasn't doing concert performances, so that's how people saw Elvis. If you wanted
Right.
to see Elvis, you had to go to one of the two or
Yeah.
three movies he made. Um, to in a theater. So,
Right.
were you going to see his movies during the same time, like when they came out? Is it?
Oh,
Yeah,
heck
we're going.
yes. Oh, heck yes.
Right.
We lived for those movies coming out.
Yeah. So you can say I was on the set when Elvis did that, right?
Right. And then that's what's fun about that is, some of the weird things that were going on and the jokes they were playing on each other. And while you're watching the movie, all this stuff that was going on behind the scenes, which kind of enhances the movie, actually.
Right. Well, like I said, I really enjoy the movies. A few photos here of Elvis, catching him driving, I assume, in and out
Yeah, that
of.
was this one is at the Rocca House
Mhm.
in Bel Air.
So my question here is, the other photo, Elvis was driving, and this one he wasn't driving.
Mhm.
Did he mostly drive, or what was the
It was,
how did it work with Elvis? Why did he drive sometimes and sometimes somebody else drove him?
I have no idea. It was about
Okay.
50-50. Sometimes he would, and sometimes one of the guys would.
Okay.
Um, I don't know how they decided that.
Okay.
And
This is
he'd ride his motorcycles in and out too.
yeah. This is just an absolute great photo.
Is
I
that the
mean,
greatest thing? I said
I
I
mean,
said smile for the camera, and that's what I got.
wow. I'm telling you. I mean,
Every time
there's a
this
lot of
gets
great.
every time this gets posted on Facebook, people argue and say it's not him.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's him, right?
Yeah. We're pretty sure we can clarify to anybody that's watching that we
It's
have the
him.
lady that snapped the picture of this photo. So,
Oh,
um,
they'll still argue with you. No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
whatever.
Well, the Always Elvis fan club will know better.
Oh, this is a great shot.
Yeah, another great one. So Elvis liked his cars.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He liked this one. This
So,
was in the back seat of the Rolls Royce. This one.
all right, were you in the car or
No, no, no. This is
no?
this is what I call the miracle photo.
Okay,
This was taken on the 4th of July, and he's in the back seat of the Rolls Royce. That car never stopped. It never stopped. We just
really?
we took a picture and saw nothing until we got the film developed. And it's just a bizarre. It's a fluke photo.
Wow, it's great.
Yeah.
Like I said, you got some great memories. So Elvis has gone through the movies, and he's about to embark on a new chapter, which is the Elvis NBC television special.
Ah, yes.
And I understand that you were able to partake in this event as well.
Yes, it was great. He was a nervous wreck. He didn't think anybody was going to show up. And he was so worried about it that he actually was giving out tickets at the gate and practically, I mean, asking people, "You are coming, you are coming." Um, the tickets were free. We had actually sent for tickets. All you had to do was do a self-addressed stamped envelope to NBC Studios, and I think they were giving out 4 tickets per household. And we had already sent for ours, and but he was still giving them out at the gate. He was just sure nobody was going to show up, and he was wrong.
Wow. So uh, obviously he did the couple of shows where he's like here's doing a stand-up performance, and then another one where he's um,
Sit
with
down.
the group of guys. Were you
Hmm.
able to see more than one of the
We saw,
shows, or how did that work?
yeah, we saw both shows, the stand up and
Both
the sit
shows.
down. Hmm.
So in all those several years now that you knew Elvis, this is really the first time that you could say that you really saw him perform, even though it's was for a television uh, special,
Absolutely, we didn't know what to expect.
right?
Yeah, yeah, it was magical. That's all I
Mhm.
can say. It blew us away.
Uh, as nervous was he as nervous as um, they said? His producer uh, basically had to convince him to go out uh, uh, to do this because he wasn't sure that he could do it.
Yeah, he was very nervous, very nervous. But you know what? That carried over into Vegas too. He was always nervous before he went on stage then too.
So speaking of that, he did the '68 comeback special, and then uh, there's another great photo that from the sit down show. So seeing you saw history. That's what some of the fans are saying.
I
You
know.
were there for that history
And we didn't even know it at the time.
at the time. Yeah. So Vegas, did you go to the '69 performances right off the hop, or
Yeah, no,
when was the first time you saw Elvis there?
his opening night, we would go every August and every January. I think that's when he played, August and January. We would go every time, usually for a week, usually opening night and closing night. Um, and yeah, we get to go backstage. We get to go to the up in the suite afterwards. Went to a few rehearsals. Actually, we went to a lot of rehearsals in LA, at RCA when he was getting ready to do shows and things. And the rehearsals were just so fun because they were so casual. And uh, again, I guess because we didn't know what to expect. But I remember telling friends, he goofs off a lot, and he cusses a lot. And they're like, no, he doesn't. And I'm like, yeah, he does. And then 10 years later, when the bootlegs come out, there it is. I go, that's what I told you.
Right.
I wasn't lying. But yeah, he would have, they'd have a lot of fun at those rehearsals. They usually start at like 10 o'clock at night and could go till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. It was crazy.
So you saw Elvis in Las Vegas. Did you see him in other concerts outside of Las Vegas?
LA, San Bernardino, Anaheim. Saw one show in Minneapolis, um, which I didn't even know he was doing a show there. I was back home visiting family, and they told me that he was doing a show there, and of course he was sold out. So I asked my sister, I go, what's the nearest nice hotel to where he was performing? And she said probably the Sheraton. I think that's what she said. So I said, well, let's go over there. And so we did. And of course, we ran into Charlie, and Charlie got a seat. So we got to see him in Minneapolis. Let me see, San Bernardino, saw him there. And that's about it, really. Long
Yeah.
Beach, Long Beach, yeah.
Sandy, was the from the numerous concerts that you saw, did the performances seem different from Vegas to being on the road, or did they have the same feel?
What do you mean on the road?
Well, outside of Las Vegas, his
Oh,
concerts that
oh,
were at the Hilton compared to a concert, say in Minneapolis or
well,
outside of Las Vegas.
yeah, well, the logistics were all different, of course. In Vegas, he was there for a month. So, he'd do the show, go backstage, go upstairs, do it again the next day. So, there was a rhythm there. Whereas on the road, I don't think it was hard for him to even keep track of what city he was in because you do a show and get on the plane and you go to the next place. So I think he was a little more discombobulated um, when he was touring.
So if you just joined us, we're talking with Elvis friend Sandy Miller. She first met Elvis at the one of his gates, front gates at in California, and eventually became close friends over the years. And she's sharing her memories here with us here and on the Always Elvis fan club stream. Sandy, I got a question from somebody you may know, some gentleman named Bob Klein. I'm not sure if you know him, but if you do,
I know Bob.
he's asking to talk about the Aloha and watching the Aloha show with Elvis. Did that
Oh,
happen?
okay. Bob's got me confused with another gal. Another,
Oh,
yeah. I tell her story all the time, but it wasn't me. Um,
oh, okay.
sorry, but yeah,
Oh, that
she was in Palm Springs. One of the gals that would be invited down to the Palm Springs home, and
okay.
when when it first aired, she got to watch it with Elvis, and he critiqued himself and the band throughout the entire show.
Oh boy.
And then she said that at the end of the show, he stood up and took a bow in the living room and said it was awesome. But yeah, that
Oh,
that was not me though. But I tell the story all the time.
well, mistaken identity
A
happens.
mistaken
Uh, we got
identity.
a we got a question from Bernie McLaughlin. He's asking Sandy, what was your favorite memory of Elvis, and why do you think his memory has been so enduring?
Oh my gosh,
That's probably a tough question, huh?
there's just too many. I mean, there's just too many good memories. He he was such a big part of my life. Well, he's a big part of many people's lives. I learned so much from him. Oddly enough, I learned a lot about people from him. Um, Not so much because of anything he said, but by watching him, watching how he related to people. Um, so yeah, I couldn't even. What was the second part of that question?
Why do you think his memory has been so enduring?
Because he was genuine. You know,
Yeah, he was.
yeah, he was unique, and
Oh, thank.
I think because he was so unique from other celebrities, he that people know
Mhm.
if you're real or not, and he was real.
So obviously, Elvis was in California doing a lot of tours. so you had a lot of connections with him, in the '60s. As it progressed in the '70s, did you see him as frequent, or um, ever have a chance to go to Graceland, perhaps?
Yes, we went to Graceland several times. Would go to the movie parties and go to Graceland afterwards. Um, Towards the '70s, the later '70s, he moved into a house on Montevideo, and this particular house, unlike all the others, you couldn't see it from the road. It was way up on a hill and a lot of trees and stuff, so you couldn't see anything. And fans, because of that, and he wasn't coming out as much anymore, so it didn't have fans around the gate as much as the other homes. But yeah, we continue to be invited up and continue to go. Um, but yeah, I mean, things did slow down.
Hmm. So I've been to Graceland many times, obviously on the tours. Give us an idea of what it's like stepping into the home of Elvis Presley. That's why I said it was his home. Um, Give us some feel of your first experience visiting his Memphis home.
Well, the very first time, I didn't even know I was going to get to go inside. We had been invited to go to one of the movie parties, or whatever they call them. And after the movie ended, Charlie asked if I wanted to go with him to return the reels of film, drop them back off at wherever they get them. And I said, sure. And then I presumed he was just going to drop me off at my hotel afterwards. And instead, he pulls into the gates of Graceland. I'm like, oh my goodness. And this was right after Christmas. So we went in through the back door. And I think the thing that struck me the most was all the Christmas trees. He had like three of them um, that were still up, still had quite a few presents underneath them that were unopened. So I did ask Elvis about that. How come you haven't opened up all your gifts yet? And he said that the one particular tree, he goes, those are gifts from fans, and only he opens them. And so he'd do a few when he had time and when the secretary was available so she could write down who the gift was from and what it was, etc. And so that kind of impressed me that he was opening up these gifts a few at a time, and they were still there under the tree. I thought that was kind of nice. And he gave me a tour of the downstairs, um, and you could tell he was proud of his home. And it was fun. It looked a lot different than it does now. But
Right.
in fact, when I went back after his death and everything, um, when I went back, it seemed so much smaller to me than it did the first time I was inside.
So, what do you remember? Do you recall what year it was that you first went to the house?
Maybe 67.
No,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I'm horrible with dates. I'm just horrible.
Yeah,
But I'm thinking around 67.
we got a question. I think you answered earlier. Monica was asking if you had been to some of the rehearsals. I think you did answer that you did,
Uh-huh.
and like you said, you got to see the free spirited Elvis. All the rehearsals, though, they were in the California area.
Uh, yeah, they were on at RCA Studios in off on Sunset in LA, and we went to a few rehearsals at the International Hotel. They usually had them in the banquet rooms. Um, Went to a few there, but
Oops, clicked the wrong one there. Um, Here's a question. Do you think Elvis would have ever made it to Europe to tour if he had lived?
I know he wanted
Was,
to. I don't know. I don't know that the Colonel ever would have let him, but I know he
right.
wanted to, which is a
Yeah,
shame. Which is a
yeah, it
shame.
was a shame. Well, he did indicate that during his performances in New York during that press conference. he talked about, other than being in the service and being to Paris and all
Right.
that he wanted to travel. And we all kind of know the story behind that to a degree, but it's a shame that the outreach wasn't to more fans. Obviously, the Via Satellite show was, I guess, the way the Colonel thought would appease Elvis for the short time.
Well, yeah, they were always saying it was just too expensive to get everything over there and blah blah blah. But it would have really rejuvenated him, I think, because he did his best when he was challenged. New things, anything that was new, any challenge. Um, that's what he needed, and I think he just got bored toward the end because it was the same old, and he was just too darn creative to just not have that challenge in front of him.
Right.
Same with the movies, challenge him.
Yeah. Did he ever bring up the potential Streisand movie to anybody that you're aware of?
Um, yeah, he's talked to it about to people, but not to me personally. I've heard other
Okay.
people's recollection of conversations, but not one personally.
Um, Jan's asking, did Elvis ever mention a favorite song of his to you?
Yeah, and he had usually they were gospel songs, but he also liked Dean Martin songs. A couple of times he would sing Dean Martin songs, so I presume he liked them a lot.
So you heard him sing. Did he sing along to Dean Martin while you were ever hear him sing other people's songs or?
He'd sing Dean Martin songs in his home.
Oh,
Don't ask me the name of them.
where was
Don't.
your recorder?
I know, where was it? Darn it.
So
I didn't do things like recording or
right,
take photos inside his
yeah,
home. That was his
yeah.
home.
No, I say that in obviously today the fans grasp at anything, and we are just so
If I
glad
had
that you.
if I had an iPhone back then, ooh.
Well, yeah, technology would have been crazy, but we do appreciate you, sharing all your memories. So, do you recall the last time you saw Elvis?
Oh, absolutely. It
Okay,
was in Palm Springs a couple months before he died.
okay,
He was down there. I don't know why he was down there, but I got a call saying that they were there, and if I wanted to come down to swing on by. And Palm Springs was a good 2.5 hour drive from where I lived. And I'm like, I don't really want to drive down there for just da 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 da. And I'm making excuses to myself. Um, but then I thought at the last minute, well, I'll go ahead and go, thankfully. And he was there. He had a new girlfriend that he introduced me to. Um, and uh, and he was just happy. He actually looked really good, and he was in a
hmm
great mood. And he was talking about some future plans about he wanted to get back in shape, and he wasn't specific. He said, I'm going to get back in shape, and I'm going to go down a different path, I think is how he worded it. And
Oh,
but I didn't ask, what path, what are you talking about?
hmm
um, I just didn't think to say anything. And like I said, he introduced me to the new gal, and I can't remember her name.
would have been Ginger at that time or Ginger
No,
Alden?
this
No,
is no, it wasn't Ginger.
no, okay,
But like I said, I don't remember her name. Um, and But he did introduce her as his new gal, or this is my new girl,
hmm
and basically that was it. But he was in a great mood, and I spent the day there. And then when I got ready to leave, um, I remember him standing at the front door as I'm walking out to my car, and the last thing he said was "Drive safe," and he was waving, big smile on his face, and he just said, "Okay, now drive safe," and I said, "I will," and that was it. That was the last time I saw
right.
him. So, and
Wow.
I think that was like June. I'm guessing it was about June of '77, somewhere in that. Yeah.
So, as many of us know, back in 77, we didn't have iPhones, and the communications situation of, what's going on in the news so readily like we do now. So, um, where were you, and how did you find out that Elvis had passed away?
I was actually in my car, having just left the movie theater. Went to see Herbie the Love Bug, or one of those Love Bug movies, and turned on my radio, and I heard "Dead at 42," and and then they played an Elvis song. So I'm like, no, that can't be. And I rushed home, and I had three numbers to Graceland that I never used. There's no reason for me to use them. So I think one was for the kitchen. One was for the kitchen. One was Charlie's room, and I don't even know what the third one was. But I called Charlie's number, and there was no, it was busy. So then I called the second number, which I believe was in the kitchen, and and the maid answered, and she sounded fine. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is a mistake. Um, and I said, may I speak to Charlie, please? And she said, who's calling? And I said, tell him Sandy from California. So I waited 30 seconds or so, and Charlie gets on the phone, and all he said was, it's true. That's all he said. It's true. And you could tell he was crying. And that's basically how that was confirmed.
No. Well, I think every Elvis fan. I was 11 years old
Oh, wow.
when Elvis passed away, and my uncle was a big fan. I was home, and they were both working, and uh, it was shock. Like, nobody knew.
What to
We
do.
know now. Now, you kind of have a bit of the story, but how does a 42-year-old singer,
Right.
how does this happen? And I remember every minute of that, from 3:30 p.m. when we got the news. So I can imagine how it was for you, um, you know, um, knowing that he was a dear friend, and that's,
And he
even,
and he looked so good the last time I saw him. He was so upbeat, and ah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
it was hard.
So one of the questions coming is, now that many years have gone by, Barbara Schaefer's asking, do you keep in touch with the other gate folks that hung around over the 40 some years?
Actually, I do. The ones that are still alive. We're all
You're
getting old.
you're all still a clique, right?
We're all still our little clique.
Hmm.
Yeah. In fact, the gal that watched the Aloha with Elvis, yeah, I was still in touch with her, and a few of the other. There's a gal that um, Elvis nicknamed Karate Pat, who used to come to his house and do karate with him. Still in touch with her. Yeah, so there's many have passed on, unfortunately, but yeah, but thanks to Facebook and other things, we are still in touch.
Great. So, question: do you ever attend Elvis Week in Memphis?
I do. I just not every
No,
year. It's been a
every
couple of
year,
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since I've gone. It's different now. Memphis is different.
right?
El- Elvis was Memphis.
Hmm.
But I do go back every couple of years.
Is it surreal? Is it? I mean, going back, knowing that it was his home and that kind of stuff. I imagine it's just got a different feel, though, right?
Basically, I now go back to meet up with friends.
Hmm.
It's more about that than anything else, just to meet up with people.
Right,
Um, yeah, because it'll, of course, never be the same. Everything's different. Everything looks different. It's just it's a meetup place for me now.
right. Well, I know as fan club members, that's what you do. It's a kind of a reunion of sorts.
Hmm.
Um, this next question from another Sandy, Sandy Barr is asking, and I think this is going to be a tough one. She's asking, what is one thing you miss the very most about Elvis?
His laugh,
His laugh.
his laugh, and the fact that that man could not tell a joke. He messed it up every time.
Is that right?
He couldn't
You
tell a
got
joke to save his soul.
so he got too excited. He was probably laughing before the
Oh yeah,
punchline.
he laughed at his own jokes. But yeah, I miss
Well,
his laugh.
well, my answer is I miss everything, but I'm sure that's the same for you as well. Even though you specified his laughter, he had a charming laugh, and it's wonderful that the fans can now hear it. You mentioned that you were in the rehearsals and you kind of caught a different side of Elvis, and I love hearing him messing up and just having a good laugh. And
Oh yeah, he was a riot at rehearsals. He was very irreverent.
and that you got to share in the moment
Yeah,
of
I
that.
I always before I met him, the picture they painted of Elvis was God fearing, loves his mother, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink. And then I met him. I'm like, well, okay, 1 out of 4 isn't bad. I mean, because he was totally opposite of. I mean, he loved his mother. Yes, he was religious, but boy, he had a sailor mouth, and it made him all the more human. The thing is, he watched how he talked when he was around fans, but in his own home, who he is. He was comfortable, and that's when you got to see the real Elvis. He was a character. Um, he was like a big boy, you know.
So do you think that the image was a lot different than the person, or was there some similarities there?
I think that's a hard one. He was very normal at home. Normal in kind of a quirky, eccentric way, but you got used to it. But he was guarded, I think. Even at the gates, he was kind of guarded. He watched what he said, and he was very polite. Um, but then inside his own home, he was just fun loving. He was always joking and messing around with the guys and talking through movies that you're trying to listen to him. He'll just be quiet so we can watch the movie, but he had to narrate everything. But yeah, he was just very fun to be around. And he was so smart. Um, he was you could talk to him about anything. You could ask questions about anything, and if he didn't know the answer, he'd find out the answer. And then the next time you saw him, he'd say, "Hey, you know what? I checked into that, and this is what I found out." He went
Oh
through a
wow.
stage. He went through a stage where he was like very interested in the Chicago mob. All the gangsters and everything. So he was reading up on that, and then a fan sent him a book of autopsies. It had autopsy. It was so gross. It had autopsy pictures in it, and he loved that darn book. He was passing that around the living room, and I'm like, oh. But
It's
things,
funny.
the strangest things fascinated him.
Yeah. Well, speaking of books, Sheila Robin was asking, do you recall title of books Elvis read when you knew him? And I guess one was an autopsy book, apparently.
One was an autopsy book, and then, like I said, a lot of books about the mob, the Chicago mob, and gosh, what else? Of course, he had what everybody knows, his books on numerology, but everybody knows about that. But history, he seemed to be interested in history. Also politics, even though he never discussed it, he was quite learned in that field. So yeah, he was just kind of interested in everything from the sounds of it.
Yeah. Any gifts from Elvis? Did he ever give you anything in
Um,
a personal
yes, I,
matter?
I have a TLC necklace. I have
Oh, wonderful.
a diamond watch. I have a turquoise ring, a birthstone ring, and I think that's it.
Wow.
And I still have it.
Gen, gen a generous,
To
just
a
a generous
fault.
person, right?
Oh, to a fault. He would have the jeweler in Vegas. He would call up the Vegas jeweler, whoever that was, and tell him to bring a case of jewelry up to the suite. And they would literally lay this huge case of rings and watches and bracelets out on the dining room table. And he told everybody in the room, just pick out whatever you want. It was crazy.
Wow. Well, it's too bad. We could, if I would have known, I would have said, could you show us one of your gifts? But no, I know we had some issues. I don't know if it was on my end, possibly. I know I did some resetting on my end. So,
well, and I
but
have an
maybe
old iPad, so maybe that's it too.
so. Maybe another time we can get together and share some more memories.
Sure.
Sandy, I really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. I know you had a busy morning, and obviously we had a little bit of a technical issue, but I'm sure we could talk for hours more. But I promised you to give you back some of your Saturday afternoon to do the things you need to do. So we really, really appreciate sharing your memories with Elvis, and speaking with you, I can tell that he really considered you a true friend from what you're telling me, and glad that you got to share some of those wonderful memories with our group here. So it's really appreciated.
Well, I really enjoyed it. Always like talking about Elvis.
Well, maybe we'll have you back again another time, and we can get into some other different stories, because I'm sure there's plenty
There's a
that you
few.
could talk about, and even share some more memories. So thanks once again, Sandy.
Thank you.
Everyone, for taking the time to rejoin us here. We really appreciate it. And if you missed any of this, you can catch the replay on both Facebook and on YouTube. Sandy, again, thank you.
Thank
And
you so
it was
much.
a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you so
Goodbye,
much.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.